Welcome to this video about the development of custom MBeans with Java Enterprise Edition. First of all, I defined an interface, and what we're going to do here is we're going to code, or we're going to explain an MXBean, which is a bit easier to program, and there's a naming convention that the MXBean has an interface which is the same name as the HIB name plus the MXBean at the end. Now, why an MXBean? Well, those MXBeans, they are using open types and they don't need to implement serializable, so they're a bit easier to code. The benefit is they're usable by any client, so you don't need any type classes on the client side. And if you look at this, the interface is really as easy as it gets. It includes the get size, set size, and includes an increment. Actually, I just slightly changed the managed color example to managed size example, just to have a different example for different technology. So it's basically the same. It uses an increment method, but it just goes for size instead of color. Now, the implementation itself looks like this. First of all, it's marked as a singleton. This is important because you only want to have one instance of this MBean. Then it's marked as a startup because the HIB should be instantiated when the application starts up. It's also marked as a local bean because there's no business interface. Well, the interface that we implement is the managed size MXBean interface that I was showing you. Now this you can skip. I added an annotation because I wanted to expose one method as a RESTful method. So just by adding this path and by adding the get and the path size for the get size method, you can expose it as a RESTful method and you can access it the same RESTful way as the RESTful management service in WebLogic would provide, or as you could do with Jalokia. So if you want to do this with a stateless session bean, this is the way to do it. Then we define the string size and the hits as before, and we define a name. It's com devcast name manage size. And what we need to do is we need to register it. And this is what happens here. It's marked as, it's annotated as post construct. That means it happens once the HIB is instantiated. And what we do is we get the platform MBean server and we register the MBean. You should be a bit careful here. Typically you would say this. However, you shouldn't use this in an HIB because access to the HIB might be implemented with a proxy. That's the only thing to be a bit careful. And of course, there's a pre-destroy unregister, which takes the MBean server and unregisters the MBean. Apart from that, there is nothing special. We have the increment method that increments the hits, and we have set size and get size implemented as before. Now, what I do is I deploy this. Let's see here in WebLogic if everything is going fine. It's deploying. And then we change to the JConsole to see if it's working. I connect to the running server. I look at the MBeans and you see it's com examples devcast. You see the managed color from before and you see the managed size with the small attribute. I change the small to, let's say let's change it to very small. And I've got the operations, which says increment. I'll hit this a couple of times. And changing back to the server, you see the hits 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try the REST API as the last thing to do. This is the URL. It says very small, so you call it with Java EE JMX resources manage size as it was defined, and it returns the new value. And if you want to set another value, you could do it here and say rather big call this again. So it's working fine.
Thanks for watching. Let's stay in touch.